I absolutely love card games, anime, and card game anime. However, I've been very open with my unhappiness with the overdress/will dress anime. With the new Divinez anime, I went in with my guard all the way up, expecting to be disappointed again, and I feel most people have felt the same burn and haven't picked up the new season because of this. But have I been burned again? Now that we're 6 episodes in, halfway through the season, I wanted to take a look at Divinez so far and see if there's an actual story to tell, or if it's just a lifeless marketing tool. If you've been wondering yourself whether or not you should start the new Divinez anime series, in this video I'll be going over the first 6 episodes and summarizing them, but I'll keep my conclusion at the end as spoiler free as I can. You can skip to there if you want to avoid spoilers, but as a quick answer I'll just say, give it a watch. I'll go into details why in this video. I started playing Vanguard physically and constantly when the overdress anime started, and was disappointed to see that, well, how disappointed I felt watching it. My issue with the dress series really came to a favorite pitch with the, spoiler alert, ending of the episode when Urara defeats Tomari using Leonore mask for the first time. They did a great job building up to this moment, even ending a very sweet episode with a shot of the uniformers building as Urara unexpectedly walks into what is led to believe the brainwashing camp of this season's villains. I was super intrigued to see how this whole thing was going to turn out, how these new mask units were going to play out both in the anime and in the TCG. And then in that same episode we see Yu showing up, and in the preview, fighting her, like right away. No time to let it sit. No time to wonder if Urara was evil. Had she betrayed her friends? What will become of this? What are the implications of this? Or anything. She instantly gets curve stomped by Yu next episode, comes back to the good guys through the power of friendship and forced metaphors, and all that build went to nothing. Another similar moment that was the nail in the coffin was Danji vs Megami in the last Will Dress season. This had literally no build-up and led to no real resolution and could not have been more rushed. I couldn't keep suspending my disbelief while watching these. I could instantly tell that they were just random thrown together story beats so that they could sell the new Magnolia and Bruce cards that were in the upcoming set. That they had to make up some crap about seeing your reflection in a mirror because the new RRR in the set just happened to be called Mirror's Verena. Not because there was a story to tell, not because there was any passion behind this. It was all just because there was a product to promote, and they had to use the anime as the vehicle. The thing with good media or anime or video games is that even though underlying everything it's trying to make money and trying to make you believe in this world, you can suspend your disbelief and be immersed in that world, in the story and its characters, if it's good. I could never really get that feeling with the dress anime. So in Divinez, I wanted to see how long it would take me before this happened to me again. Let's start with episode 1. Episode 1 was solid. We got a quick introduction to the characters and general plot. Essentially, we have 6 fated duelists who each get a new fancy card. They must compete between each other to see who wins and who gets their wish granted. Our main character has a sick little sister with some mysterious anime disease. You know, the one that is never mentioned by name but just happens to keep someone bedridden in a hospital for the entirety of their screen time. This becomes our main character Akina's goal to compete so that he can wish for his sister to get better, even though he apparently doesn't care for Vanguard and has never played. This episode introduced us briefly to the other 5 fated in Mikoto, who is a former idol, now who is aiming to be a pro Vanguard player, returning characters from the dress series, Taizo and Masanori, and finally Sho, some nihilist that wants nothing, or whatever. The episode also introduced us to Gabe Lewis, the mascot character for the series and the host/recruiter of this tournament. This strange floating dragon creature approaches each player after they've received their fated card and informs them about the fated clash. We end this episode with the main character, Akina, getting his fated card, learning about the fated clash, and vowing to learn Vanguard and win this fated clash to wish for his sister's health. Overall, I was cautiously immersed, but I liked this episode. My only comment was that this is the 4th time that we've had a protagonist for this Vanguard series who doesn't play Vanguard at the start of the series, learns Vanguard on the first episode, and becomes the best player in the entire series by the end of it. At least here, Akina has this sort of kind of non-plus attitude about the game, and his sister was the bigger fan out of the family, and he only ends up playing the game to actually save his sister instead of just the usual thing, Vanguard is fun. I guess that's an interesting enough wrinkle for now. I like this cast a lot. I actually really like the main character, Akina. Except I should bring up the elephant in the room of him looking like a carbon copy of the previous protagonist, Yu. My theory is that Vanguard has been rebooted twice already, and so closely together that they went ahead and decided to make Akina look like an older version of the previous protagonist, Yu, instead of someone completely different, so that it didn't come off as a third hard reboot at this point, but just a continuation whenever someone, for example, sees any of the promotional material or sees any of the new booster sets. They will think, okay, Vanguard's still going, instead of, oh, okay, we're doing this song and dance again. Episode 2 is our usual teaching fight. In this episode, we go over how to play the game, some of the new mechanics as well. We pick off from the last episode where Akina asks Now, who he works with, to teach him how to play. They go to Stray Cat, where Megumi, from the previous series, is now working. They fight with the new trial decks, which are of course a product releasing for this era of Vanguard. They end the fight with the foreshadowing of a 6 damage heal being a possibility in a fight, but with Now winning either way. Akina enjoys his first fight, buys cards, and goes home to build up his deck. Then, at the end of the episode, we get to reveal that the fated clash will start right now, with Akina and Now fighting in the first round. As I mentioned, they use the trial decks that will be released in real life to coincide with this anime. Midway through the fight, Akina gets excited and super into Vanguard and recommends actually playing with skills, which was insanely ironic as many players have been blasting these trial decks as a product for not having cards with actual skills. It only contains, I think, 3 cards that actually have any skills, the vast majority of it, 97%, let's say, just being blank cards that just have no skill text. That said, I was still immersed as while this was obviously showing off a product to market it, it played a natural role in the narrative. It didn't feel contrived. After this episode ended, I was super conflicted for many reasons. I really enjoyed it, but was hit with this wombo combo of a bunch of different things I disliked, possibly happening next episode. Like the anime rushing into the fated clash already, my new favorite character Now getting a loss instantly, Akina, who just after barely caring about Vanguard in episode 1, is now just going to flat out beat his super competitive teacher in the next episode. Yet again, another female character in the Vanguard series not getting any time to shine, and this whole tournament just having 0 stakes or impact. There was a lot riding into episode 3. I felt it would make or break my immersion and this series for me. Episode 3 gives us our first fated clash, Now versus Akina. It was a fun fight to watch, revealing both of their cards and divine skills. In the end, Akina wins thanks to his divine skill, turning a critical trigger into a heal on 6 damage, like the foreshadowing from the previous episode. They did an amazing job with this reveal as they built it up with Akina's dialogue, just for it to reveal it being a critical trigger instead of a heal. While it seemed to be over, Akina's divine skill kicked in, making that critical trigger act as a heal, allowing him to heal on 6. A very cool way to misdirect and subvert expectations. So it's been a while, but I was actually able to enjoy Cardfight from the anime in such a long while, despite feeling like I could just never have this feeling ever again. I went into it hoping that they would show some kind of depth and long-term story building, having Akina lose, give him some space to grow as a character and a fighter while also letting Now shine. I thought it would be the kind of thing where he would lose this fated clash and, good luck kid, try again next time. Maybe even face the repercussions of losing or of whatever the winner's wish ended up being. I just couldn't and still can't to this point envision how the story could progress for more than 1 season past these next 6-7 episodes if they just had Akina bum rush through this fated clash. Leading up to the anime season starting, Bushiroad made this fated clash seem like this huge epic bout. However, I should have learned my lesson of never taking what Bushiroad says at face value. Previously, in the dress anime era, they spent several months leading into the first Will Dress episode hyping up the upcoming deluxe tournament, slowly revealing characters and blocks, and having viewers try and guess who would win in this round-robin tournament. This made it seem like this deluxe was going to be a massive tournament, with all this build to supplement the lack of build-up in the actual previous season. A round-robin tournament means that you, in a block, face all of the players in that block, and whoever, 2 or 3 or however, do the best get to then advance to a final tournament. The only reason you would do this kind of format is to show several different matchups and several different ways that the players can interact with each other. However, in reality, it was just extremely rushed, with most of the main cast, let alone all these new characters that were just introduced, not getting any screen time for their fights, and becoming extremely predictable after the first 2 episodes. You even started to ask the question, why was this even a round robin in the first place? While I feel it was still too soon for Akina to be a competitive player trying to become a pro after playing for the first time like 3 days prior, according to the narrative, unless I might have missed something, I like the fight enough to let this slide. What I won't let slide, however, is how things are starting to end up. I'm jumping ahead, but essentially everyone has a wish that they can either achieve on their own, or that is just completely irrelevant compared to Akina wanting to help his sister. It really makes it seem like Akina will just win the whole thing, since it doesn't really matter much for the losers. Starting to smell a lot like a Rush Deluxe at this point to me. There was a scene in episode 2 where Akina asked Gabe Lewis, where's the catch essentially? What happens if you lose the fated clash? It seems like you get to just enter, win, get your wish, or lose, and just get off scot-free. Gabe had said a few times before this, fate can be cruel. And in this episode, he answers Akina's question by saying, if there's a price to pay, it's the hope that your wish may come true. That's what you'll lose when you lose. We're all sure that this is gonna turn sour somehow, and I feel like this line is our hint. There's also been another character looming around in the background that I haven't mentioned yet, who has been showing up between shots. They showed up at the end of this episode to tell Akina that he will die and his wish will not come true if he continues in the fated clash. There seems to be something more to the fated clash, which might balance out the fact that it won't be a long drawn out epic. Episode 4 allowed us to get to know Mikoto, the idol turned net vanguarder. We learned a bit of her idol work and see her playing Net Vanguard, which seems to be some sort of updated version of Dear Days, where she is a high-ranked player in this. We learn of her struggle to be the perfect idol amidst constantly being judged by her peers, and loving online Vanguard where she can actually finally be her true self. We see her become friends with Akina after discovering she's actually been friends with his sister online. They meet up at the Stray shop once again, where Mikoto intends to buy some singles to build her first IRL deck, as she's only played Vanguard online up to this point. This eventually leads her into playing against Megumi to show off the new Magnolia cards, as well as the new lyrical deck in Chris Rain. They had a cute moment here where Mikoto tries to view public knowledge to see the amount of triggers in play. Would have been nice if this ended up being sort of Mikoto's thing, being analytic and keeping this kind of stuff in mind. But, spoiler alert, this doesn't ever come up in the next couple of episodes, at least not explicitly. Mikoto wins, continuing Megumi's losing streak from the previous series. At the end, we learn that the next fated fight has been announced. Mikoto versus Taizo, another character returning from the Dress series. This episode was fine, as there was at least build to the next fight. That being said, the structure of introduce fighter, watch them fight in fated clash very next episode is a bit formulaic, but it's fine. I don't really have much to say about this episode, honestly, so let's just move on to the next one. Episode 5 gives us Mikoto versus Taizo. Taizo is a Wellstar user from the Dress series who previously had 0 on-screen wins and barely any screen time. So coming into Divinez and seeing him return, many hoped that this would be a redemption arc for him. This fight was amazing, honestly, with the victory going to the more seasoned player, Taizo. The build-up for his Satellite Canyon was great. Even though I even knew the effect beforehand, seeing it play out in the anime was just masterful. After the fight, we see that the next clash will be Akina versus Taizo. So yeah, I really enjoyed this fight. Seeing Taizo finally win was great, but also just seeing Taizo in action was amazing. Taizo's VA is probably my favorite in this whole series, counting dress and overdress, due to the raw emotion he puts into his lines. Something that I often see missing from most of these Vanguard fights. The fight was also beautifully animated, another thing that's been missing from Vanguard anime for a good while now. That said, this is the third time we see a leading female character lose, and there are now 0 female characters left in the Fated Clash. The issue with this not only stems from the Dress series, but also previous Vanguard series not letting female characters develop past some superficial relationship with a man. We see this in Asuka, whose only character trait is to thirst over Ren, Tokoha, who constantly wants to surpass her big brother, and we see this with Megumi from the Dress series as well, who essentially is just Tokoha Part 2. Megumi and Tomari were said to be the 2 leading ladies of the Dress series, but quickly became background characters replaced by a much younger female character. Megumi also had her entire character arc revolve around her wanting to get noticed by a male character to a laughable degree. So seeing Megumi lose again, you're hurt, but seeing Nao and Makoto lose, Makoto's loss was justified, however, as she may be well versed in Net Vanguard but is a rookie in real life fights. Not to mention, Taizo desperately needed a win and was even elevated to the 2nd place Deluxe champion of the 2nd Deluxe for this series. On top of this, I think Taizo's deck has an inherent advantage over Mikoto, as he could retire her rear guards, and she basically needed an entire board to function. So while the fight was amazing, the right player won, it just left something to be desired. That said, it is only episode 5, so there is still some time to steer the ship away from these girls sinking into the same fate as their predecessors. But it's very hard to fight off the evidence of what's been done in the past. On top of all of this, Mikoto's an idol. I won't let my thoughts on idol culture stink up this video too much, but an idol by nature is just a pretty face and body for the male gaze, so Mikoto seemingly seems to be doomed from the start. Moving on to episode 6, we learn in episode 5 that Taizo and that hooded character warning Akina that he's gonna die have actually been working together. They want Akino out of the Fated Clash, and Taizo's been tasked to do this. We learn in this episode a bit more about Taizo and his wish, as well as he initially actually declined to enter the Fated Clash. He wants to achieve his goals with his own hands, not just with some fancy wish. He only ended up joining after this mysterious hooded character told him that participants of the Fated Clash will die. Akina works to come up with a strategy to beat Taizo along with his mentor Nao. They come up with an insane strategy of going all gas, no brakes, playing no heals, and no PGs. While I didn't want to see Taizo lose and Akina get another quote-unquote undeserved win, this was my favorite episode of the entire series so far. Akina ends up winning through his reckless strategy. I really loved a lot about this episode. The fight was well animated and well paced. The reveal of Akina having no heals or PGs is one of my favorite moments in this entire series. I've only had one moment in all of the Dress series that I actually like, and that was when Danji rides into Drag Jewel. I love these 2 moments because it's not only hype to see it play out, but it was also extremely out of left field, unpredictable, and uses the fight as their way to tell a story. Most of these fights in the Vanguard anime tend to have the same old boring route. Does the opponent have a PG? Oh my god, they had a PG! Will they check a trigger? Oh my god, they checked the trigger! With those interactions being the only story beats within the fight. So it was really refreshing to see the medium of a card fight expanded on and actually tell a story. That's what I love about card game anime, using a card game to tell a story outside of what's actually happening within the game. Here we see a desperate Akina willing to do anything to win. Most characters say that they'll do anything to win, but never even give more than the bare minimum. This even extends to the actual players of our game. Rather than find a way out of a tough situation by maybe thinking out of the box and having some resolve, they usually do the bare minimum or just give up, stating that it was all out of their control from the start and giving themselves no fault. Akina saw how the Welstra deck functioned and saw that aggression could win him the game, a strategy that is true even to the real-life iteration of this deck. We can see through this action that Akina wants to give his all for his sister and win. So, in conclusion, does the Divinez anime play out like an actual enjoyable anime, or does it play out like product placement? It is possible for a series, an anime series, to be both, but the desire is for it to lead more towards an anime with a story to tell. Right now, I honestly don't know. I rewatched the first 6 episodes, and I'm even willing to rewatch them again because I really enjoyed watching them. That's something that I can't even say about the Dress series. As much as I've constantly dunked on it, I don't really feel like going back to watch it. Whereas here with Divinez, I've literally just watched it before recording this, and I'm totally up to watching it again if someone wants to watch it. However, there was some very obvious product integration here. For example, the first 3 Fated clashes we saw in these 6 episodes used decks from set 1 exclusively, while the remaining 2 Fated fighters have their cards in set 2. Why not mix things up? Instead, we only see cards from set 1, as the narrative conveniently leaves out those 2 fighters with their cards in set 2 for last. Perhaps this was intended from the start, but I can't help but assume otherwise. We even had Megumi have a fight for this first half and see a returning character in the preview for set 7. Both of these characters had their decks supported in the first set. So the question really comes down to which came first, the anime plot or the set list for sets 1 and 2. There's no way for me to tell at this point, which is actually a good thing for now. That line being blurry and unclear allows me to suspend my disbelief and enjoy the anime for now. Another point is the direction is extremely predictable. Every one of the Fated 6 have wishy-washy or easily obtainable wishes outside of Akina. Makes it pretty clear who should win this, and takes out some of the punch from the losses and wins. Being predictable isn't always bad, but we have to see how the execution ends up. A bad execution that is predictable is absolutely miserable, while a good execution but predictable is actually really fun to watch. While I might have noted many negatives, it came more of a place of wanting this series to prove me wrong and shatter my expectations, rather than from a place of displeasure. These 6 episodes have done enough to win back some of my faith and trust in a good Vanguard anime coming before us one of these days. In the end, I'll keep watching Divinez. It's been really fun to watch, and even though I'm still very cautious of my expectations remaining intact, I still want to find out how this turns out. There's a lot that I want to say about moments I skipped over, but this video has gone on long enough, I think. Overall, I enjoyed the new characters and their decks and feel like there is a whole butt ton of potential with this series. From the fights being more fun and animated to the story being less convoluted and more easy to follow, I would recommend this for fans of Vanguard for now, and we'll see you guys again in either after episode 12 or 13. Till then, take care of yourselves and each other, play Vanguard, and have yourselves a damn good one.